Hey guys, this is your boy Mufasa. As you already know, this show is nothing without you guys. So please don't forget to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, and let's continue growing. As a result of another second round exit, Daryl Morey, president of basketball operations, gets fired and is now off the team. And Bob Myers, who is the president of HBSE, the parent company owning the Sixers, Harris and Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, owned by Josh Harris and David Blitzer, are now. Bob Myers is going to be conducting the search for the new president of basketball operations, pretty much the new leader of that team. But obviously, that new person is going to be working with Bob Myers, pretty much having the last say. I would assume in the decision making in this new front office. I want to start with talking about Daryl Morey and what I believe cost him his job. I believe, yes, it's a top job. It's a top position when you have an ownership group who is not really willing to spend that much. We're gonna touch on some of the things that Josh Harris did mention in his press conference with Bob Myers earlier. But yeah, that's been an issue for the Sixers and the front office for a little while. You have an ownership group, and specifically Josh Harris, who's not really like a willing spender when it comes to the luxury tax and getting deeper into the aprons. So it's pretty much tough when you have an ownership group like that, but you still had enough ammo and resources to deliver better performances. He's done some great things for Philadelphia. Getting us off of the Ben Simmons contract, for instance, has been a great thing, if you ask me. And now, unfortunately, got the cap space, but then went back into a terrible contract with Paul George, where I would have given him maybe max money, but not max years. But unfortunately, he decided to give him a 4 year, and then on top of that went and extended Joel Embiid for an additional 3 years while there was no rush to do so. I've been hearing things like, yes, that was part of the deal. They wanted to align Joel and Paul, but given the health history, I don't think it was the right decision. I didn't think it was the right decision at the time. I still don't believe it was the right decision. And that pretty much puts you in a cap hell, and now you gotta rely on not only drafting well, but your end of the bench guys to hit when you get in these free agents. And I just don't think it was a good enough job with that. The trade of Jared McCann at the trade deadline it's been a terrible move. Also, it was a cap move just to relieve some money and not pay the tax. If you ask me, you could have used other players on the roster. I'm thinking about a guy like Andre Drummond or anybody else in order to get to that. I don't think McCann was the right choice, especially because he was on a controllable contract for the next 2 years. You trade him a year after drafting him 16. You trade him for the 22nd pick from Houston this year. And unfortunately, with some second round picks, obviously, but now you're seeing him flourish in Oklahoma City in the playoffs when you needed some scoring punch off the bench and another guy to relieve Maxey from the ball handling and creation duties. On top of that, you draft a guy like Janai Broome, while there was another player like Maxime Renault on the board at the time. Broome spends pretty much his whole year in the G League, so you waste that pick this year when you know you needed contribution from everybody on your roster at this point. Let alone the fact that you settle with a 14-man roster instead of a 15-man roster throughout the year. And I can't even forget to mention the idea that the trade from McCain was setting up another trade that ended up falling out. That's unacceptable if you ask me. you got to be able to make sure that trade goes through. Otherwise, you don't do the McCann trade. And if it had to be a three-way trade, then that's what it had to be. But things like that pretty much decided Daryl Morey's fate, let alone also certain roster moves that I never understood, whether it was keeping Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon on the roster this year when you already had just a 14-man roster and you knew these guys weren't playing. I would have rather have Kyle Lowry on the roster, on the bench as an assistant coach. If he, you maybe force him to retire, or if he's not ready to retire, then you just, let him go seek a spot on another team, So those, and then you had to add a second round pick to even be able to get rid of the Jared McCann, the Eric Gordon contract at the trade deadline, and on top of that, you have the Quentin Grimes situation where you got rid of Gershon Yabusele, and the whole idea was we want to re-sign Quentin Grimes. I agree with the idea that he wasn't deserving of $25 million a year, which is what he was, looking around for. But now with this qualifying offer that he signed, he's an unrestricted free agent this year. And once again, that's where the McCann trade comes back and bites you, because if Grimes walks away, you only have VJ and Tyrese on your roster as point guards next year. You had McCann, you let him walk, knowing that situation and the chance that Grimes might be able to just walk away. So now you got to find a way to either bring Grimes back as a reasonable contract, or now you got to figure something else out while you had somebody already in house. And that's just unfortunate. It's no longer his problem because he's out. I wish him nothing but the best for the future. But I'm pretty excited about the new regime in Philadelphia with Bob Myers, who had a press conference with Josh Harris today. He's going to be overseeing the search of the new general manager. I'm going to give my top 3 guys that I believe should be contenders or finalists for the search for the Sixers' new president of basketball operations position. And, why not maybe one of these guys getting hired later on in the show. But Bob Myers, who had a press conference today, there was a lot of topics that were covered with Josh Harris as well. And one of the first things that I heard, which is encouraging, is Josh Harris, the owner of the team, saying the front office has a green light to get in the tax if that's what's needed. And I love how Bob Myers also put pressure on Josh Harris by mentioning that he would not be working for an owner who doesn't want to pay the tax if he thinks that's what needs to be done to be competitive and go for a championship. That's how you put pressure on your ownership group as well. And he has the resume to prove that when you do pay the tax, you have a higher chance of not only getting a better roster, but also getting deeper in the playoffs. So I really love the mindset that Bob is also already coming with. I heard him mention how the depth on the team, and especially your bench, is also important, and actually even more important with the new CBA constraints. I've heard him talk about player development. I've heard him talk about the medical staff and all of these other aspects of the front office that we don't necessarily think about right off the bat. And those are things that I've always been stressing, and I think Morey and his previous and the previous regimes didn't really pay attention to. You have to have a great medical department, especially when you have guys like Joel Embiid and Paul George aging and with their recurring health issues. You have to be also, when you have so many players on max contracts, you have to be able to develop internally when you draft your players or when you get them undrafted. You have to be able to hit some guys like Lou Dort, AJ Mitchell, Isaiah Joe, Austin Reeves, guys that were, bottom line of the second round, undrafted players that were brought into the building and then were developed. You got to be able to have, a good scouting team to be able to hit on your draft picks. Those are things that are really important in a new day and age of basketball and in your front office. And you can see in most of the teams that are really at the top of the NBA right now, they do have an excellent front office and a great scouting and development team and player personnel and medical staff. So I'm excited to hear that about Bob and him putting the accent on these things. Obviously, like I said, none of this happens if you don't have an ownership who's that is willing to put the money up to be able to have some great results. I'm hoping that with the pedigree of Bob Myers now, Josh Harris, like he said in this press conference, is going to be able to put the necessary resources at the new front office disposal for them to be able to do the job that they've been paid to accomplish. So I'm really excited about the new regime. Like I said, led by Bob Myers.